Hi guys, my name is Borradante. Let's talk about how to paint nothing. So, this tutorial is about painting anything while making sure that it doesn't matter if you really know the object well or are barely familiar with it. This is a kind of trick, or not really a trick, but a whole technique, a set of tricks, that I was really trying to develop for the last year or year and a half since I started doing YouTube, meaning since the moment when I started painting a lot of paintings every day. It kind of made me see that knowing anatomy well, knowing geometry well, or knowing whatever you're painting well is just not enough. You can know it, but being able to visualize it is a complete different thing. Complete different thing, meaning you don't really need to know anything to paint anything. And this is what this tutorial is gonna be about. Now, I'm gonna be mentioning a lot of techniques from previous tutorials that really work well with this one, especially including the how to paint like a god tutorial, where I was talking about avoiding silhouettes for the first time. So avoiding silhouettes is really important for this technique. And the second important tutorial for this one is detailing and blending tutorial, where I was talking about how to paint a whole mess of details with just few strokes. But today I'm gonna try to combine all of it into addressing one issue that everyone always struggles with. How to just make things look good without being a complete genius that knows everything about the world and how everything looks like, and still being able to actually paint something that is nice to look at. So the point is that to paint a human being, or a car, or an airplane, you don't have to know the anatomy perfectly, or even good. You don't have to be an architect of airplanes and whatnot, like you don't have to be some kind of engineer. What you have to be is a human being that lives on Earth and who has a decent experience of meeting faces and people in their lives, or cars or airplanes or whatever you want to paint. That is just about enough to paint a good anything. A painting is not a graph, it's not a blueprint, it's not even a photograph. A painting is a projection of your impression of an object onto the canvas. Meaning you don't have to paint actual objects, you have to paint an impression of them. And that is the key moment. And now we'll go through some tricks to make sure that it actually works this way with your brushstrokes. And it all starts with the ability of painting nothing filled with something. A way to paint simplified objects filled with artistic content. So first, what you're gonna need is a tool, a messy brush with a texture. Now, it's not necessary to have a messy brush. Many awesome digital artists use actually just a round, sharp brush, and they still make sure that everything looks really cool and artistic, impressive, and not insanely detailed, yet still looking really cool. Well, that is because they're really experienced in what they're doing, and also they are probably aiming for a very high level of detail. So basically all the sharp and cylindrical strokes of their brushes will be covered up with the smaller strokes afterwards. So it's not really necessary to put all the realistic, awesome and impressive brush strokes onto the canvas that are gonna be covered up later on with the smaller details. But in order to learn the technique, it's really helpful to use the messy brush, because it won't allow you to do something that you shouldn't do. So this is the shape of the brush that I'm using. It looks like some kind of murder scene. I selected it from the standard brush alphas of Paintstorm Studio. It's right here in the grunge folder. I think it's really cool. Also, recently I stopped using the tilting brushes, so nothing is rotating anywhere anymore. Because after a while, I kind of found it didn't really help me, ever. And after a while, like if you have a brush that has a certain shape that is tilting like this, like from your pen, after a while you forget to actually tilt it and everything will be painted like this kind of. So you better use a somewhat of a symmetrical shape of the brush and just let it be whatever the mess it is, because it doesn't matter. And also I'm using the my favorite canvas texture on it, which is not necessary at all. You may paint without a texture at all, but I feel like it's really good in a way that, you know, a brush stroke that looks like this it's kind of cool to look at as in a final painting. Meaning if you will see actual raw brushstrokes on a canvas that look like this, you will be okay with that. Like, it looks interesting, you want to look at it, it doesn't look digital or fake, it looks nice. Plus, the texture also adds to the mass of what you're getting on the canvas, and that is also helpful. Now, another thing is the color dynamics is something that I don't think I ever made a tutorial about, but it's also a very important thing, especially for putting something into nothing. So as you can see, every stroke I make kinda has a different color a little bit. It's really close to this kind of slightly warm gray color, but we constantly have some kind of texture appearing. And I'm not talking about the digital texture of the canvas, I'm talking about the artistic texture, which is a different thing. You can get this texture without having any texture on your brush. The texture of just this, you see, this is the brush work with the texture. It has a certain pattern, certain color abstraction, color dynamics in it that makes it nice to look at. This is what the artistic texture is. So color dynamics is one of the most important tools to achieve a good artistic texture. This is important because right now I painted basically like, a flat wall or something like that. But it's interesting to look at. It's filled with content. This is a painting now. It's not just a flat color. The abstraction is something that you have to fill everything with. Even when there is nothing there, this is the way to actually work with that. You just fill it with the interesting abstraction of your brush strokes. It's really important to do that. It will save you a lot of time and work, and it will make the painting look a lot better. So to demonstrate, I'm gonna just paint a cube in space, using all of the techniques to make sure that this cube is gonna look actually artistic and interesting, satisfying in all ways. So this is a basic spot, just a silhouette, and the program already makes half a work for me with all the texture and messy brush silhouettes and the color dynamics all over the place. So now I'm gonna just assume that there's a light from like this direction, mostly lighting up this plane and a little bit of this. So that's what I'm gonna do now. Like, it's an incredibly simple object, so I don't really have to think about much, only make sure that the edges of the box don't go all kinds of directions so it wouldn't look lame. So here it is, I basically defined all the colors. Now I'll make sure that this color abstraction in here looks satisfying. Like, there's no very random and unbalanced color spots, and they all look just nice. It doesn't require any knowledge, it doesn't require any following the geometry, following the vanishing points or anything like this. You don't have to use your brain almost at all. All you have to do is make sure that this rectangle right now, this one, that it looks satisfying to your eye. So right now I'm grabbing some of the yellow color, putting it here a little bit to balance out something that's going on here. I don't know, like, it doesn't mean anything, so no one will ever tell you that it's wrong. Like, maybe follow a little bit, like, the direction of this edge and this and this and this, like, make the lines of the brush parallel to the edges of the box. It may feel a bit better this way, or maybe not, maybe just go completely chaotic. It's also a thing. You can go whatever you want, just choose your own way to show it. This is one of the things that define the artist's style. What brushes you use, what textures you use, and what color abstraction you do on the surfaces. So there's that. And you see I was also working back and forth with the light gray background, and it also got some of the color abstraction everywhere. So I'll blend that around to make it a bit more satisfying. Still adding this abstraction because it's still working in my brush. So this is it. I just painted a simple, completely blank, red-ish, rust-colored box, and it looks like a painting. It's so nice to look at, because everywhere there's something going on it. It's interesting, it's filled with the story in every millimeter of it. So this is how we fill nothing with something. You should define all of the objects like this, not only the ones that are very simple, but also the ones that are very complex, or like, whatever, any object. Now I googled around a little bit to make sure I can demonstrate what I'm talking about with someone's artwork. So this is a painting made by Helen Scherfbeck. She's a Finnish artist. So look at this way she defined all the details on this girl. Look how hair is just a blurry transition between very vague spots of color. We can see no actual hair, it's just an impression of a hair. And even more impressive is what's going on with this dress, ballet dress, or I don't know what that is, but you know what you're looking at. This is one of those super detailed, wrinkly dresses with semi-transparent, curly patterns on them and whatnot. But there's not a single one of them on the painting. There's not just any pattern of the cloth in here. There's barely even any separate wrinkle of this thing. It's all blended together, and it doesn't look stupid. And even the texture on the carpet that looks very well defined, it actually looks a lot more defined than the girl overall. But if you look closely, all the details, they really also blend into each other. Like whenever an artist goes like, okay, I'm not exactly sure how it will go in there, I'll just blend it away. You should really do that a lot. That is something that really works well with these kind of like long strings decorative thing on this couchy whatever it is. Also all blended together, only very rare spaces between them that have vertical nature kind of give us a hint that this is a lot of separate things. And as you can see, there's like a bit yellowish color, a bit reddish, a bit darker, pale-ish color. So there's color abstraction going everywhere. In the hair, some red stuff, some yellow, some pale stuff, red, pale again. Colors are jumping back and forth everywhere. And the more color abstraction you have, the easier it is to bring in any kind of mess to blend away and hide the details that you don't really know what they look like. What was important for the artist in this painting is to show the girl preparing to do some dance, I suppose, I don't know. So, it's just a nice girl wearing a really cool and stylish black and white outfit, and that's what we'll look at. Everything else doesn't matter that much, and it's blended away. There's more artwork by this artist that I also like again, the hair and this thing, like what is this? I don't even know, but it looks nice. I think this one is also by Helen Schleberberg. Look at the grass, there's no grass in here. Only some of the grass that you can easily see by the fact that there's a huge contrast between the green grass and the white dress. So that's where we can actually get the hint that this is the grass. Everything else is just some abstraction that's also kind of increased by the fact that this is a very low resolution JPEG picture, but still, in the original it's not far from this anyway. And it's all like, there's barely any details defined on this grass in here, but it has way more content with all the colors swimming one into another everywhere. This has a lot more content than when if you would paint the grass with some kind of repetitive separate grass stems that have the same color and have no change all over the hill, the way many beginner artists do, literally defining all the sharp details that we don't have to see and avoiding the overall details of the interesting pattern that we want to see. That's the main little thing that you have to work on. Like, we all know what the grass looks like, but the problem is how to paint it. So with the grass, with the hair, with any complex things, or not complex, even the things that you just don't know very well, the detailing and blending tutorial talks exactly about that. How to make sure you just define more than your brush, than your tools can afford to do, showing infinite amount of details with just a few strokes. So that tutorial is really gonna help with that, and it's implied in this theory perfectly as well. So just a few more thoughts before this tutorial turns into a huge thing. Whenever you paint a lot of objects that have different colors, different materials and whatnot, don't think about it as painting separate objects. Think about it as painting the light. This is something I talk about a lot, but I really think that this is really important to avoid the struggle. Here's the photograph. This is some kind of program that adds lens blur, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is that in the background we can see here, there's the sharp nature picture, and in here it's blurred out. Now, in blurry version, there's no sharp details, but it's still definitely a forest. And the point of this kind of blur is not just about smaller amount of details, but also of the fact that all of the objects are blended the same way. Meaning they all become something that is one, which is the light reflected by these objects. So basically for the light, it doesn't matter what is being reflected from to reach our eyes. So it's all the same thing, it's all just light with all the bokeh effect of bright sky breaking through the leaves in here, creating some circles. Or less bright details with the less amount of contrast that just blend together into a very indistinguishable mass. This is all the kind of things that work in the painting. So for instance, when we add the grass, we just add the spot of it like this. Using the messy brush, using the color dynamics, everything is here. Now, it already looks like a grass with the flat lighting. It has a certain amount of content going on inside of it due to the slightly different colors of each stroke. It already may be an actual grass in some kind of a flat lit condition. But let's say we will follow the lighting of this box, so on top there's a bright light, on this side is gonna be darker, and in here a bit more saturated and just a little bit darker. So kinda like this in here. I'm just adding spots, I'm not defining any separate grass stem or anything like this. And in here we just go much darker and less saturated. And let's maybe just add some of the mass, since grass is kind of a chaotic, randomized shape. We'll add just random, shadowy spots like this. Again, thinking about it more like the abstraction on this side of the box. Like, we just look at what looks more nicer to the eye. So I'm doing this, maybe breaking through a little bit into here with the brighter color. And whenever I see, like, the spot looks a bit too sharp, like it just looks like a separate spot, then I'll just, I don't know, blend away one of the edges of it, and now it all looks fine. Always try, like, if something looks too sharp and weird, try blending away one of the edges. It usually works, I don't know why. Like in here I can also just add this blur all of a sudden, and it all looks cool. Also a little bit in here, because it kind of was a bit too defined. Blurring away. And how to go further from this, like what if you just want to have a more defined picture in general? You just grab a smaller brush and maybe kind of try to define a bit of a sharper details of the grass, but not really breaking any masses that you already defined here. Just a little sharper here and there to give the eye a hint that this is the grass. The same it went in this painting, like only some of the hints, and the rest is like, yeah, that's the same stuff. This is how paintings work. So you just define a little bit with some silhouettes. You don't paint any lighting on every separate stem or anything like that. Some of the details even like visually fly on top, not really getting like this to the bottom of the where the grass is growing from, like just flying on top, because this is what the blurry image looks like. If two tiny stems would intersect, they will form a very high contrast spot in here, but the stems themselves are less. Let me show you. Like, say there's two bits of grass that do this. In here, there's the high contrast. In here, it's all low contrast because they're very thin. And when we will blur this away, the only thing that will actually be visible, more or less, is this middle part. So when it's all artistically blurred away, what this thing will look like in the result is just basically kind of like this kind of spot that is segregated from the rest of the grass. So you just make a tiny spot there, implying that there may be some kind of intersection, or maybe there's some kind of flower that is also green growing on this grass, and that's why it's also more visible than the rest of the things. You just imply, you don't really know, you assume with your brushwork what it may look like. So yeah, this is it. Here's some nice grass for you. In conclusion, the main message of this video is basically about making sure that you don't define anything that you don't know yourself. Don't define what you don't know. The viewer also doesn't know exactly what most of the things look like, same as you don't know that. But the viewer knows what the things shouldn't look like. And that is the moment where you fail. When you try to define everything in a very sharp way, you will have so many moments to fail, to define something in the wrong way, and the human eye will see a mistake. But when something is blurred away, and only the things that you're sure about are defined, that looks pleasant. So try using all of the tools of the messy brush, of the color dynamics, of the texture, and the color abstraction, and blending away all the details that you don't know what they should look like, and just creating this artistic mess with your brushwork. It's really important to develop your own style of brushwork. That's what everything in your paintings will look like. So yeah, work on that. When you will learn how to define anything, even though you don't know it very well, it's a lot easier to keep learning all of those things further on. Like, you will already be able to define something, but it will be kind of blurred away, and you can just build on top of that while learning a little bit more and more about what things should look like, but still getting a good picture on any stage of your painting. So yeah, create a mess, paint nothing with something, and don't define what you don't know. Ask more questions in the comments if you have any about the subject. And I thank you for watching if you did. I guess you did if you're here. Leave a like and subscribe, tell a friend. Don't define what you don't know. Do whatever you want. And I will see you in the next one. Bye! Are you not defining what you don't know yet? Are you not...